Hey, my name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds, and we have a brand new release this week called Go Hard Trap and Bass. And normally I get asked a lot on how I get my 808 kick drums, or what do I use to get those type of very sub-heavy type of kick drums. And this video, I'm going to be talking about how we actually did some of the kick drums for this particular pack using Ableton's Operator. Now, Operator is a very cool synth that comes with Ableton Live 9 Suite, but you can actually use it to create some very, very cool 808 style kick drums, or just very sub-heavy type of tones that you can use to thicken up any sort of like kick drum for maybe house music production. If your kick is lacking a bit or it's a little thin, this is a great technique that you can use to add a little bit more weight to that particular kick drum. So let's get started. What you'll want to do is obviously open up an empty MIDI track, so as we have here, and there's nothing in there. And so what we'll do is we'll go into Ableton's instrument section, and you'll want to grab an instance of Operator and just drag it right on in. Now, the first thing that you'll want to do in Operator is to switch off oscillators B, C, and D. So we want to shut those off because we're only going to use one oscillator. And then what we're going to do is add in Ableton's mono utility. And this will keep the kick drum in mono. Since it's very low sub frequencies, we obviously don't need it in the stereo field, and we definitely want it to sit right in the center, and we don't want any phasing issues or anything like that, so it's always best to try and keep these very sub type of kick drums in mono. So we'll go to the audio effects right here under utility and just drag in the mono, and that'll automatically keep it in mono for you. Now, the next thing you want to do is you'll want to add in a MIDI clip and then draw in a few notes at the desired pitch that you're going to want. Now, I already have a MIDI clip here to save a bit on time, so here we are in the key of F, and I've drawn in a couple of notes there. And let's see if we go back here, and if we go ahead and press play, okay, and that's just one oscillator within Operator. And what you'll want to do is make sure that you set Operator's oscillator to a sine wave. And that is done right here. And there you see it at the top. Just make sure you have the sine wave selected. Now, you can really choose anything that you like. Again, a lot of this is going to be, tailored to taste. So I will kind of put you in the right direction, and you can really tailor this to your particular tastes. So under the sine wave section, you also have a 4-bit sine wave and an 8-bit sine wave. So if you want a little bit more of an aggressive type of sub, then maybe choose the 8-bit, and that'll give you a little bit more of that bit crushing type of effect. So for right now, I'm going to leave it just on a regular sine. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to switch on the pitch envelope and adjust the amount to taste for the attack of the kick. So right here, you can see at the bottom again, I'll switch it on, it turns blue, and we're just going to add maybe about 40% of that pitch envelope. Now you can see we've got a little bit of an attack there on the front end. If we crank it up all the way, you can see that we're getting more of that kick, and this is traditionally the way that you'll try and create a full kick drum. But right now, essentially for any sort of like 808 or sub bass kicks, and especially for this particular scenario, if we're doing a trap type of kick, I'll usually use another layer of a kick drum for more of the top end, more of the punch. And we want to keep the sub not too punchy on the attack because we don't want it to collide with the layered sample that we'll add in later. So I will normally kind of put this at about maybe 40%. And that way it's got a little bit of an attack, but not too much. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is under the filter section, you can adjust the envelope to a negative value to darken the attack, similar to like an OVO style kick drum. So let's go over here to the filter section, and we're going to, you can choose between a 12 or 24 slope on the filter there. And right here under envelope, let's give this a little bit of a negative value. go back here and let's see if we see how this sounds with a 8-bit sine wave. See, now you're hearing more of that crunching happening. So if we switch to a 4-bit, see, that's a little too much. Go back to the 8. Okay, so I have the envelope set to a negative 38% value just to kind of darken it a little bit. Again, you can make adjustments to the pitch envelope here. So I increased the pitch envelope just a tad to kind of get that knock on the front end just a little bit more than what we had it. Obviously, it changed after we set the envelope to a negative value on the filter section. Okay, and like I said, if you want to have a more aggressive sound, if you go under the filter section, you can change the shaper on the filter section to a different mode. So for here, let's see if we set it to hard. And let's see, soft. So if we do the hard mode, you can actually change the dry and wet mix here. So let's set it to about 50%. Okay, so I set it to about 20%. So it's just adding in just a little bit of that hard shaping to it. We don't want to, add too much. But again, this is all based on taste. So if you want a much more aggressive 808 sub, go ahead and crank it up. Okay, so one last thing to do is we will select oscillator A. And now you can make the adjustments to the actual release. And this, again, is all adjusted to taste. And if you want that really long, extended, 808 type of boom, then you'll want to come here and actually take the release and crank it up a bit. So now that we have the kick drum kind of set, again, you can always go back. And if you want to change the shaper amount and all those things, you can do that. So let's say if we crank the shaper up a bit. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good. Now, one last thing to do. Obviously, we want to kind of control this a little bit. So one thing that I like to do is I like to add the gate to this 808. And I like to have another kick, which would normally be like the punchy part of the kick, which is more the top end and that, that punch and that body. I usually like to have that particular sample trigger the gate on the 808 so that it can kind of control it a little bit so that the sub frequencies aren't just rambling all over the place. And so the way that we do that is obviously you just add the gate at the end of the chain here. And then what you're going to want to do is click on this little arrow here and engage the side chain. And then what we'll do is we'll put the audio from the body thump kick. Now, obviously, if you have another track that has, your punch kick drum or something like that, that's what you'll want to actually trigger it. So before we actually get that going, just really quick, let me go here. So here is our body kick drum. And let me just play it for you really quick. Okay. And it's really simple to get something like this. Here's the original kick. Okay, and all you have to do, all I did actually, is just take the fades. And obviously we don't want a lot of extension on it. We want it pretty short because the 808 is going to really be more of the tail of the kick drum. So we can shorten this a little bit. And we don't need the attack of this. We just want more of the punch and the body. We don't really need the attack, especially for this type of track. If you're doing like some trap stuff or any of the OVO style, kind of tracks, it's very dark. You don't really need that real punchy attack. It's just more about a muffled body kind of effect. So now just by adjusting the tail and the front end on here, Okay, and so that's what these sound like now. And again, you can always add some EQ in these if you want. You know, you can really bring these down. Or you can add a little bit of saturation. You know, just some soft clip if you want to do a soft sine. So we'll just leave that on for right now. And now what we'll do is we'll go back to operator, and here's our gate. Okay, and now what you need to do is just adjust the threshold and the return and the release to taste. So basically what's happening is every time the kick drum from the body here hits, it's going to trigger the gate and then allow the 808 to kind of cut through. And this allows us to have a little bit more control over, you know, the actual 808 kick drum. Okay, so again, just adjust the threshold and the return, and let's say if we want to get a little bit more of the 808, the tail to actually come through, we're going to crank up that release on here. Okay, so there you go. Just make some simple adjustments. Again, this is just to kind of get you in the area. Again, just adjust the threshold, the return, and the release on the gate to taste, whatever works best for the particular kick that you created in Operator. And once you put it together with other elements, so you have something like, you know, like this. Now, this isn't just for trap or any sort of like heavy bass music. Again, this can work for any sort of like deep house kind of stuff. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be very long extended. Again, if you could have a kick drum on, let's say for house. So let's say we come over here and let's shut off Operator real quick. Okay, so there we are, a tempo of 124. So what we'll do is we'll come into Operator here, and we're going to obviously make some adjustments. We don't really need much of an attack because for deep house, we just want to add some nice weight to this kick drum. So again, we'll come into the filter section. I want to turn off the shaper. And under the pitch envelope, we've reduced the actual amount of the pitch envelope, so we're not getting much of an attack. We're just using it more for just some weight. Okay, and one thing we have to do is also adjust the release. Okay, so let me shut this off really quick so we can kind of A/B it. Okay, now we turn it on, and again, we can just bring this down a bit. Okay, so I hope that this video helped you kind of understand Operator a little bit better and some other things that it can do besides like FM synthesis and those kinds of things, and how you can utilize Operator to actually create some very heavy sub-bass 808 style kick drums in Ableton Live 9. We do have a brand new pack coming out that has a lot of really cool kick drums, some of them that we actually created with Operator using these particular methods. And so we've got a loop here, and this is from the actual Go Hard Trap and Bass pack, which will be out on ADSR Sounds this week. So if we actually play this, and here's the pack up here, and you get a lot of really cool stuff in it. So there's a lot of different melodies. So if we play this particular loop, right, so again, hope you guys found this interesting and helpful in some way. Remember to subscribe to the ADSR YouTube channel here. We always have the latest first looks, overviews, and instructional quick tips. My name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds, and again, thanks for watching.